This is his story. Jesse Livermore was born on the 26th of July 1877 in Massachusetts. His father was a farmer and his mother was a homemaker. Jesse learned to read and write by the time he was just 3.5 years old, and by the age of 5 he was already reading through financial newspapers. He attended grammar school and, unsurprisingly, was very good with numbers, particularly mental arithmetic. In fact, while at school he claims that he completed 3 years' worth of arithmetic in just 1 year. At the age of 14, under his father's insistence, he left school and finished his education. His father, who had also dropped out of school at 14 to become a farmer, wanted Jesse to join him and devote his life to farming. However, Jesse was devastated by this idea. He wanted to continue with his love of numbers and arithmetic and to carve out his own path in life. Due to this burning desire, his mother agreed to help Jesse to run away from home and to keep it secret from his father. She sent him packing with just $5 in his pocket, which would be roughly equivalent to over $100 in terms of today's money. Jesse got his first job as a chalk boy for a brokerage firm called Payne Webber while he was still just 14 years old. He'd been in the firm looking around, and because one of the boys was off sick, he was asked if he could step in. He was soon given a permanent position. This was an ideal job for him because of his love of numbers. Prices would come through the ticker tape and be called out, and then he would write them all on the chalkboard for the customers to be able to see. While he was working at this job, he became so fascinated with the way that prices moved that he started keeping a little notebook. Since he could clearly remember all the numbers and prices at the end of the day, he would write these out in his notebook and observe the patterns in the way that they moved. He kept this as his own little hobby or project outside of his work as a chalk boy. Up until this point, Livermore hadn't done any trading, as he believed that you needed to have a lot of money to be able to participate. However, it was whilst working as a chalk boy that he was first introduced to bucket shops. The bucket shops were almost like betting shops, where you could back a particular stock based on whether it was going to go up or down without actually needing to invest in the underlying asset. You could do this with low amounts of money and on very thin margin, and the bucket shop would be taking the other side of your bet. Livermore decided this would be a good opportunity to test out his work and see if his theories about prices actually would work out in the market. He would check his notebook where he'd been recording figures and patterns in the movement of prices and then decide which trades to play on. Jesse started using his system to play at the bucket shops on his lunch hour, and the first profit he ever made was just over $3. However, it wasn't long before he was making more money than he was in his day job, so he decided to quit this to focus more on this hobby full time. At 15 years old, Jesse had made $1,000 from trading at the bucket shops, which is roughly the equivalent to $25,000 in terms of today's money. Jesse continued to do well against the bucket shops by following his own system, and one by one the bucket shops began to ban him because of the amount of money that he was earning at their expense. He would even have to resort to using a disguise so that he could carry on trading, but word did get around and eventually everyone at the bucket shops knew who he was anyway. Eventually he was banned from the majority of the bucket shops in his town. By the age of 20, Livermore had accumulated his first $10,000. However, this reduced massively by the age of 21 to $2,500. He says that if he stuck with his system, he would make more profits than losses, as his system would usually win around 70% of the time. However, most of his losses came unnecessarily when he would not stick with his own system, a problem that a lot of traders have to overcome at some point in their career. At the age of 21, having been banned from most of the bucket shops in Boston, Jesse took his $2,500 and decided to move to New York to start trading legitimately at the New York Stock Exchange. In New York, it wasn't long before Jesse gained a reputation for being a winning trader. But soon after, he lost his money once again. It seemed his winning formula was only designed for winning at bucket shops and not for the real stock exchange. He went to St. Louis to go back to betting at bucket shops and to increase his money once again. This was a new town for him with new bucket shops, so he thought they wouldn't know who he was. But he did eventually get recognised again, and again he was banned from the shops. Instead, his solution was to send in people on his behalf. He managed to actually make enough money by doing this to be able to go back to trading in New York. Although he had already started to make a name for himself around trading circles, Livermore first became famous for his trading during the panic of 1907. It was during this time that he managed to earn $1 million in one day. He made his money by shorting the market as it crashed. By the end of the crash, he was worth $3 million. At this point, he knew the market was in a bad way, and that it was possible for it to move even more negatively. He had already decided, therefore, that he would do what he could to avoid a deeper crisis, when he then received a request from the financier JP Morgan, who was putting together a plan to try to bring the market back to health. Livermore looked up to JP Morgan, so he was more than happy to help. He began buying as many stocks as he could, which also led other people to taking the same action. Thanks to this, the market started to recover, and many people that followed Livermore's lead also made a lot of money. As a result of this, in some circles, Livermore was branded a hero. But of course, he himself had also